holy trinities. These girls thought themselves saints of something, and I nodded and kneeled. They wrote hunger haikus, so I copied them down dutifully, a disciple. I planned to list them here before I realized I don't want to write one of those religious texts, rife with commandments and sublime suffering and hierarchies. Too many people I love have misread a memoir as a manual. I don't want to inspire anyone to restrict their intake, dietary or emotional. I want to give something to sad girls, former ones and almost ones and aspiring ones and current ones and their lovers and their haters that sounds like a symphony or a screamo band or a country song to cry to, cacophonous and guttural and probably trying too hard. I want to drape the living, skinny, sexy, sad girl in hazard lights instead of letting her corpse soak up the spotlight. And I don't want to demonize her even as I try desperately not to glamorize her, because it's really not her fault. She probably just watched the same movies I did. In middle school in the mid-aughts, I read young adult novels with titles like Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls and Pretty Little Liars, listened to Paramore on a loop, and watched Gossip Girl and the OC obsessively. In books and on screens, the skinny, sexy, sad girl usually likes to numb herself. If unconsciousness is unavailable, she might distract herself from the pain with a high. A lot of these characters don't survive their storylines. Bright young things flame out. We all know what happened to the Virgin Suicides series of pubescent, pallid blonde beauties. Flower-crowned and drowned, Ophelia is an icon to girls cruising for a muse. Daisy, Girl Interrupted's bulimic character, died by suicide on her birthday, and she is the only girl in the book who gets called sexy. 13 Reasons Why's high school protagonist, Hannah, overdosed as a literary character and slit her wrists once she was adapted to television. Emma Bovary drank poison, Anna Karenina dove in front of a train, and I'm only halfway through the alphabet in Wikipedia's list of suicides in fiction. I'm just name-checking the most famous ones, the girls you've clicked past or gazed at, maybe even cried over. Sad girls lilt through their lonely lives, becoming beloved only in death. It doesn't seem to matter how many times we watch this type of girl die. We can't learn our lesson. Won't saint them until they martyr themselves for the cause. I was already sad, so I thought I might as well express it, like many of these girls did, with my body. I stopped eating as much and spent hours scrolling through Tumblr, finding other sad girls and reposting their poems and black and white photography. I watched my body shrink in the mirror, proud to discover how powerful my mind was. Lying in bed at night, I imagined the inside of my stomach, whatever I'd eaten that day, stacked neatly against blood-red walls. My mother noticed the sculpture to self-hatred I was hammering away at and sent me to a clinic, where I was first given the diagnoses of eating disorder, anxiety disorder, and depression. Finally, I didn't feel like a fraud. I was officially as sad as my idols and my online sisters. Susan Sontag once wrote the phrase sororal death in her journal. She thought it meant women dying for each other, and she didn't think it existed, suicidal solidarity. But then she'd never spent time in an eating disorders ward or stood watch outside a bathroom a friend was throwing up in. Anne Boyer, writing a theoretical framework for breast cancer, defines sororal death as dying of being a woman. She writes a membership roll. The women authors who died of breast cancer or suicide to avoid the progression of breast cancer. Other sororal deaths I'd include deaths from eating disorders, which have some of the highest mortality rates of any mental illnesses, and deaths from botched plastic surgeries. Dying of the demands of womanhood, the fascism of femininity. Boyer includes Jennifer, one of Valley of the Dolls starlets, who chose death instead of a mastectomy because she thought her lover and her public loved her for her hourglass body. I imagine sororal deaths by body fascism, corpses wrapped in spandex. Some yearnful, clumsy girl going to return her weights to the bin after an exercise class, but her hands are sweaty. Her dumbbell slips and lands on someone.